for a panel discussion. And thank you, Pathak sir, for setting the stage for the discussion where you really brought in about the physical security to technology and the cyber attacks which are happening. I'm audible back now? So,
yes.
And it's really a very interesting situation where we are today. And COVID is a kind of time when we actually migrated from the physical part to the digital space. And this last two to 3 years, we have seen so much of digital transformation which has happened. Whether it was your personal life, whether it was your organizational issues, and the security has changed its total paradigm from the physical security to the technological security as well. So you can't just say you're doing a physical security. I'll just give an example, a very raw example it may be. You are on an airport and you have all the physical guards, CSF in this case, but just imagine any guards for that matter, ABC. And you have all the gates which are there, which are opened on through the sensors. There are no more any physical keys the earlier time when you had. Okay? And all the gates are locked. Somehow, at the peak hour, morning, 7 o'clock, you have 10,000 people in the airport. All the gates are locked. Nothing goes in, nothing goes out. What do you do? So, will you call this as a physical security or a technological security? There was a cyber attack which happened, you're gone, nothing moves in, nothing moves out. This is a situation we are going to be in today. And believe me, it's all possible. A similar kind of situation when, while sir was saying, we have already seen a hybrid warfare which has already happened. Ukraine and Russia, cyber war is at the forefront. And sir was talking about the critical infrastructure, and just to put you in a perspective, critical infrastructures, there are 6 sectors which have been identified by the Government of India as per the National Cyber Security Policy 2013. And those need to be guarded. And what are they? They are your power grid, your water, your transportation, your aviation, your railway network, your telecom, these are the kind of networks, banks, they are the ones which are to be guarded. And why I'm saying all this? Because a cyber attack doesn't happen on this jiffy. It can happen by any person who's having access to the network. He may be the last guy in the company or the CEO of the company or the MD of the company, because it always starts with one click. You'll get an email, there'll be a phishing link, you'll have a malware in your network, it will get detonated, and your complete network goes for a toss. You are under a ransomware attack. So, do you call this as a physical space? Yes. You call it as a technological space? Yes. Because we are all in the digital transformation now. So, the physical and the cyber space is all blurring. That's why we do talk of a role of a CSO and a CISO merging, right? So we used to always talk of a CSO having very secluded role. We talk of a CSO having a very secluded role now, but because of the digital transformation, it's really merging. And it's a testing time where we really need to grow ourselves. We really need to migrate ourselves to those technologies. We really need to hone our technologies or our skills to those level. It's a very important phase what we are going through. And especially after COVID, like I told you, so much of technology has come in. We never saw facial recognition at the forefront. We were only having a, biometric through a finger. Now all having facial recognition. And to tell you, facial recognition has got a deepfake problem. A person never exists and he's there on the screen. How do you really identify? You have a problem of the data, right? And most of the security agencies who have the data, who are the custodians of the data? How the data is going to be handled? What is the life cycle of the data? Where is the data going? So these are the kind of challenges what we have. So I have a guest panel with me with Chakradhari, Colonel PK, Lopa, and Jeffrey with me, who are going to be discussing on all these issues today and try and brainstorm all these challenges what we're having. So my first question to the panel, of course, is a common question to all. we'd like to listen from them. Starting from Chakradhari, since we talk of the physical security, we have lots of human resource which are there. How the digital transformation is really, changing the shape of the physical securities.
Good evening, all. Colonel sir, I think it's a very interesting question that you asked. The last few years, especially after COVID, especially after COVID and also in correlation with the digital India that our Prime Minister has been talking about, especially the digital payment gateway and all that. What I have noticed personally is that the guard, the guy who's the bottom end of the pyramid, of the security pyramid, we have seen that man or that woman transform digitally. Somebody who used to carry a feature phone before is today carrying a smartphone and has access to, the World Wide Web. And he might still not know the dangers of carrying a cell phone in his pocket and, just pressing, the buttons here and there. They still get scammed and all that. But I think that is where India's digital journey from physical security to, the cyberspace actually began for a common man. I'm not talking about professionals here. Now, I'll just quickly share this. 30 years back, if a foreign country or a foreign adversary had to invade India or reach us, they had to literally bring their tanks and guns and, enter into our physical borders and, all that. But today, we are carrying the foreign adversary in our pockets because they have access to this, the mobile phone. And this is as close as an adversary can get today. So this is something that we as security professionals need to help the commoners understand that, hey, the battlefield has got into your pocket right now. And it's about time that, you take your personal safety and security seriously, because that's what will then translate to corporations taking the same seriously. Sir.
Thank you. And very interestingly, because when you're having a mobile phone, and just to tell you, China, we always talk of, we are against China's Chinese phone. And there was a phone called MI phone, which most of us did have it. And that was the most common phone amongst the working lot. What it used to do was that it was always, the moment you boot up that mobile phone, it will connect up to a server in Hong Kong, which is under control of China. That entails that all your data, all your call records, all your location of people of interest was not residing in India. It was going to China. So that is where we see a major challenge. So over to you, Colonel P.K. Singh, for the same question as to, since we are a manpower-dominated industry, how are we seeing this transformation taking place? Over to you, Colonel P.K.
Definitely. So, of course, Colonel Chakradhari has already highlighted a lot of things about it. I hope my audio is clear.
You got to be a bit closer to your.
Just wanted to check my.
Yeah.
Is it audible now, sir?
Yeah. Yeah.
So primarily, I would like to highlight things about this transition that is happening from purely physical mode of security to the digital world that we are moving to, and transition in terms of technology, which I see is at very rapid pace. The gap that I see is in the transition of the manpower. As I mentioned, it of course remains a manpower intensive thing even now, even with the technology coming in. And as a recent, Colonel Chakradhari highlighted that while we carry a mobile phone, unless we are aware of the advantages as well as the disadvantages that it brings alongside carrying that, and same with the technological tools that are possible in the security and safety domain are empowered with through various organizations. Unless they are particularly trained on a very continuous basis with the evolving and developing technologies and the advantages and disadvantages of that. I foresee that while we may look having a safety advantage, we may end up rather having a major disadvantage with such kind of technologies coming in hand. My perspective about it, technology is evolving at a rapid pace, and do have sort of lot of power that is, and we need to focus as far as the technology development train.
Your audio
these,
is echoing. Kanan PK, your audio is echoing. Yeah. Okay, what we'll do is we'll go on to Dr. Lopa and take your views, Dr. Lopa. She's been a panelist with me on lots of forums, so it's a pleasure to have her again moderating this panel along. And Dr. Lopa, so since this being a very manpower dominated, technology is really making inroads into this industry of security. Would like to hear your views on this particular aspect as to how the complete transformation is taking place.
Good evening. Nice to connect you all. Now, we talk about the manpower domination in the security field, as well as how technology is actually slowly penetrating on that area. So, both the previous panels talked about the mobile. It's today, if we look at the ecosystem where we are living, yes, we are carrying the adversary if we don't know how to utilize the technology for the betterment of the mankind. It is like, you know, your mobile can act against you. You have a smart home, you have a television, which are smart by nature, you have lots of appliances at home, and while we are actually walking through the road also, all our movements are actually captured. And how we are going to interact with the technology, what are the precautions we need to take care, and how we are going to reap the benefit, that is very important. So, yes, the most important thing I felt, because, you know, individual security, individual data protection is in turn going to a bigger area called your corporate or your office or the area of your work. And then overall it is contributing towards the national security. So if we look at that part, first thing, we need to see that how attacker evolving, how smart they are. Equally, we need to ensure that as a nation, when we are adopting any technology, it could be a mobile phone also. Is that particular technology safe enough? I think this is the time for us to take a back step, stop for a moment, and think about what would be our strategy to adopt a secure product. That is very important, because if the product is having the backdoor, then it is very difficult. Another thing is, as a nation, we are huge in size. It's how we can give appropriate awareness to the people who are not very literate, not having the understanding of, you know, how data can be utilized as a weapon against the individual, so how we can scale up them. And above that, the major challenge today is that security domain itself is suffering because we don't have an adequate number of professionals, while a product actually built. Unless until there is a regulatory enforcement, security or privacy is after till date, unless you have a good regulation in particular sector, or particular sector face a recurrent attack and understand the kind of loss they are actually going through due to the data loss, or infrastructure breakdown. So this is a high time to look on all this area.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lopa. And over to you, Jeffrey, with the same question on the, your views on it. Jeffrey.
Thank you, Colonel. I think that technology is obviously a significant enabler for performance improvements in security, loss prevention, and safety for that matter. But it must be the right technology. And I think as we introduce technology into any business, we're also introducing new risks. And I'm not convinced that every business has been able to implement new technologies, understanding those risks, and then more importantly, managing those risks. I think the question with regards to transition for the guard is that it's not just the guard, it's for the guarding company. I think the management needs to transition as well as the guard on the ground. How do you maximise this technology for the benefit of the business without interrupting the business that you're engaged with? Sometimes I think technology is introduced for security purpose, but it can have a negative effect if it's not managed properly on the business in which it's operating, like aviation, for instance, and even the finance sector. So there are many, many challenges as we introduce technology. It is a great enabler. It will benefit not only the business and the security outcomes, but our communities as a whole. And where in the past, I mean, it was only 20 years ago where we had very basic CCTV and access control. Mobile phones were almost in their infancy. We had some tags on clothing as in a loss prevention. We've come a long, long way in 20 years. We'll go further in the next 20 years, but are we prepared for that road ahead? Do we know what it looks like? And have we got the skill set of everybody to make sure that we maximise the introduction of that technology? We don't introduce the wrong technology or introduce it without appropriate training and safeguards.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. And very rightly, because each technology, whenever it comes, it's got its own challenges. And that's what our topic for today also is. And while we see there are so many sensors which are coming up, when I say sensors, IoT devices, access control, it's all smart now. You have CCTV cameras, they are smart. The next level which is coming up is the facial recognition in the CCTV cameras. You can identify, what that person is up to. You can sense even the behavioral pattern of that person, right? And those are the kind of things which are there. If you're putting that camera in, say, for example, any critical infrastructure or even any smart city, you can identify who are the violators, who are the criminals moving around in the city. That's the advantage part of it. But then there are the challenges also which come along. And that's what my next question to my panel would be that how you're going to advise to the companies as to how they should be looking in for the technology transformation, which are the areas which you need to do it. Because when we talk of the technology here, the landscape is really very huge. We can go on for hours and hours talking about the technology, but then when it comes to the industry or the company which you really need to guide to, what are the key areas which you're looking in for? So over to you, Chandrika. Chakradhari. My fault.
So I think the most important thing here would be now, before we were looking at only man, human-based security systems. And now we're slowly transitioning into technology. So today I'm looking at a security system or a security architecture which I would say is man-tech. It's driven by man, and technology is basically helping man to do what he needs to do. Sir, I think the most important thing here that we need to be advising corporations and everybody who's using security setups is that they need to clearly define the responsibilities that would be taken care by the man and the responsibilities taken care by the machine. Now, we do understand, we're talking about, artificial intelligence and all that. Now, while you have a system in place which can identify face, which can identify, we also have systems which can identify 150 variations of a face. You put beard and mustache and all that stuff, it can still recognize you, who you are, behind the makeup. Now, while you have that technology available to you, when that technology is capturing this evidence or this information and bringing it onto your command and control center on your big screens, the most important thing is that the person who's standing there, who's the decision maker, now how well is he trained to understand that information and take the right decision at that point of time? So it is going to be, I think the future is the near future would basically be man being trained with technology. It's going to be two of us, me and, this robot, whom I'm training with. I think, sir, that is where I am looking at the near future going.
Thank you. That's very interesting. And over to you, Colonel PK. Colonel PK, you're there. Colonel PK, you can unmute yourself. And you can use the headset. The question is that, which are the areas which you need to advise the companies for the digital transformation?
Yes. Yeah. As Colonel Chakradhari was talking about technology. Now, what I want to add to this was that what current technology in the security is, if we talk of, say, artificial intelligence, wherein it captures data, compares it with the data and patterns, and then maybe predict a security. And but now this is only a comparison being done to something which had happened in past. However, what I see is, while we and the technology is evolving, so are the perpetrators also evolving. So it is a greater possibility that the security threat that we or the operation face would not be something similar to what has already occurred. That's where the man behind the technology, the experience of that man behind the technology comes into play. So, what I believe is, it is experience plus training plus interpretation and analysis there for subsequently the decision action basis. This what that man and on the corporations to invest on when they are focusing on hiring the security team for themselves. They should look at this kind of experience and expertise who can handle the technology that is coming along. Thank you.
Yeah. Very interestingly, I just want to tell a case which happened, and it's all possible. We are talking about the AI, just diverging from the original topic. A father rings up his son on a landline phone in a house and says that there'll be an electrician who will come, just permit him to get into the house. Child, noting that the voice is of the father, okay, fine. At the gate, it's a gated society, so the call comes from the gate that your father has told that there's an electrician who's coming. Get him. Since the child knows that there's an electrician coming, permitted. Gates open, everything happened. But the fact is, the incident happened also after that. But the fact was that the voice of the father was not the voice of the father. It was a synthetic voice of the AI. And this all fact. You can manipulate the voice of a CEO and tell the CFO to make a payment of 5 lakhs on a phone. The CFO gives a call or a message back to the CEO. He gets the same response, pay it, and really happens. So these are the kind of cases which are very live. AI is into a deep power of doing all this by the criminals. It's all possible, right? So over to you, Dr. Lopa, for the areas where we need to have technology.
So when we are adopting any technology, most importantly, it could be anything like AI, ML, we need to understand that what is the business environment within which we are actually going to adopt that? What are the risks associated with? We need to remember very important thing that technology risk management is not a checklist item. A person should be well trained to understand and dig down to that particular technology. And we need to look from a different angle. One is inherent risks of technology. For example, if we take a AI/ML, right, we need to look at the algorithmic bias, capability overestimation, reputational risks, legal risks, programmatic error, cyber threat. These are some of the things our traditional risk management field is not used to with. So basically, take technology, understand your business environment, align them, understand the operational risks, inherent risks, legal and compliance risks. Also, the kind of, threat that technology itself will attract from the ecosystem where your business is actually embedded. That is the outer part of your business, and how the connectivities are initiated. That is very, very important while adopting the technology. And as you very correctly said that, there are lots of cases where technology is used as weapons to actually, get the access using the artificial voice or artificial command. So we need to also look at those areas, and we need to have a proper authentication mechanism to validate that before accepting any command or any request which is going to execute a task and may have an impact on your business or individual life. For example, if you look at the pacemaker, if we go back 15 years back or 10 years back, people are not thinking that much. But think about today, if a person is having a pacemaker and the pacemaker tuning device somewhere nearby, how you need to protect if there is no authentication mechanism in place. Anybody can change the heart rate, right? So, or a connected hospital, what kind of risks it is actually taking. Same way, a connected vehicle. So, a connected vehicle is not only going to, create a hazard for the people inside, that is the people onboarded. Even by taking access to the connected vehicle, a terrorist attack can be initiated in the road, which can impact the life on the road. So it is very important that we need to have a good risk assessment, understand that, train the people on that, and then it actually start using those technology.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dopa. And over to you, Jeffrey, on your views.
Thank you, Colonel. I must agree with my colleagues on the panel and their comments. I think and Dr. Lopa is absolutely right here. We're talking about technology in the security and safety as a prevention enabler, but also there are people out there who use technology to attack organisations. So there's the two growths in technology. There's the growth on the good side and there's growth on the bad side. And I think that the organisations that employ technology have got to understand that if they do it wrong or incorrectly without that legal and compliance that Dr. Lopa spoke about, then that injures their credibility and the brand value of that business. So it's essential that when technology is used, that there's a policy around the use of it. It is compliant with the legal system where it is employed. There's a governance overarch, in my opinion, that there obviously the training for those people who have access to it, both from an image point of view, an information point of view, and then that there's an ongoing audit. I think there's an audit of how the system is being used, how making sure that technology is not being abused. that's being used, how it was intended, how it was deployed, and that it's not being abused by those who have access to use it for their role.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. I think very important points. And interestingly, one advice which we need to always follow, and that goes for everyone. We do have all the CCTV cameras. We are putting it up. We have a newer generation CCTV cameras also coming up. We are really putting it up. And how many of you have really seen that, whether you removed the earlier CCTV cameras or they are still in existence or they are still connected? Because any device which is connected is an entry point for a cyber attack, right? So that's a major security threat which you need to see. That's one. Second, what is very important is, and it actually became very eminent during the COVID, we never used to look in from the risk from a cyber perspective, okay? So cyber risk management, even the disaster management, looking in from the cyber attack point of view, incident response, your work from home policies, your BYOD devices, that's another challenge which you have. You have whole lot of security guys and you give them mobile phone, you tell them, okay, use this mobile phone for the service or for the job. But do you know they are a potential point of attack? They are a potential point for data leakage, right? And any attacker who wants to get into, it's very easy for him. So you really need to look into these particular aspects when it comes to cyber risk. Or one advice which I would like to give, and where I was telling you about the CCTV cameras, there's a site called showdown.io. Go there. It's a site where you can see whether your CCTV camera is open for the public. And believe you me, half of you will find that your CCTV camera is visible because you would have never changed your passwords from admin, and even the user ID would also be the same. So that is the kind of situation we are there. Now, since Chakradhari is expert in the terrorism, I will, and we do talk of the terrorism when it comes to the transformation. And we've been talking of the terrorism, it's a major problem in the country. Only in 2022, as part of the IT Act, we got the terminology called cyber terrorism for the first time, which was never existing. And that's where we are really looking the cyber terrorism as a major threat to the country. And they do the same thing, what was a physical cyber attacks, they also do the same kind of things in the cyber itself, starting from nurturing people on the social media to getting the people to the darknet, training them, washing their minds, putting up those people for training into the cyber attacks, finally executing those attacks, and we are seeing those cyber attacks do happen. And that's an act of the cyber terrorism. And which are the targets for the cyber terrorism? So if I go back to the start of my talk where I spoke of the critical information infrastructure, those are the ones. And the aim is very simple. They want to kill people, they want to create chaos. So Chakradhari, I want to know your views because you have an expertise in the counterterrorism, your views on it, and especially this question is for you as to how do you look at the transformation happening in this area?
Sir, if time permits, I'll quickly would want to share an incident that maybe many of you have ignored. So before Burhan Wani, the famous terrorist of JNK, he was assassinated. If you all just rewind, yourself in the mind to that time, a week, 10 days before he was assassinated, there were 3 animal cruelty videos that went viral. How many of you remember that? One was 3 gentlemen throwing a dog off the 3rd floor. It was somewhere in South Indian, state. And there was one, I think, which, I'm not sure which country it belonged to, but towards, the west, Poland Island side, where a guy was literally hanging a dog, with a rope in the neck. And one more, I'm forgetting which one. So these 3 videos went viral all of a sudden. During that time, I was not very frequent on my Facebook, but once in a way, maybe a couple of times in a day, I used to log in. So in the morning when I logged in during, this time, I saw the video pop up. And of course, it had, a huge amount of likes and shares and all that stuff. And now we know that, all these can be faked thanks to the whistleblower. So I saw that video, and I usually don't like these videos because I don't like them as a being. So I just ignored that video. In the evening, the next day morning, again the same video popped up. Now, interesting is that nobody from my network really liked or shared that video. That was very interesting. So then I started looking at that video and understanding as to why it is, popping up now and then. Back then, when that was happening, I could not join the dots. But a couple of years later, when I was doing a small research on psychological warfare, that is when I was able to join the dots. So what these cyber terrorists did was they used animal cruelty videos to instigate social anger. They created social anger. Everybody got angry about this. Now, specifically in India, we might be, a lot of us eat non-veg, but we still cannot see a pet, being somebody being brutal with the animal. So a social anger was created. And then Burhan Wani, he was encountered, okay? And then the protests started in J&K, where women and children were put in the front, and then fake or morphed pictures of women and children with pellet marks, if you remember. Those went very viral. They started coming in. So basically, in a nutshell, the modus operandi of these criminals or these cyber terrorists was to create social anger using animal cruelty videos, slowly transform or transition that anger towards the photographs that were morphed. This is exactly how we are being played on social media. Everything that we see has a reason why it is there. So, sir, this is just a nutshell of how, the terrorists, cyber terrorists are using our emotions and are driving us to achieve their targets.
Yeah, thank you, Chakradhari. Very interesting. And interestingly, we are in a testing time where it's no more a reactive policing which is required. No more a time when we react to any incident which is there. We have to go in a mode of proactive policing, proactive security. And it's all tool-based. It's not hallucination-based. It's not sixth sense-based. It's all tool-based. It's all technology-based. And we as a security fraternity, we need to train our boys for that kind of technologies, those kind of solutions which are there, so that we are equipped to give those kind of things to our customers. Then only we'll be in business in a longer run, right? Otherwise, if we are going to be in a plain vanilla security, we are going to be having a challenge after a couple of years. And that's why I told you the role of CISO and CSO are merging. It's blurring, right? And if you put the dots together, the things will emanate that way, right? And now where the challenge lies is that we cannot change the complete thing overnight. It's at the cost of money, it's cost of business, it's cost of the growth of the company. They have the plans in place. I coming on a panel and saying that, hey, we are going to change everything, we are all technology, doesn't really make sense. So it's got its own challenges of the industry also. So my question to Colonel PK is, what are the challenges which are there while we have the existing security solutions in place, we have the existing business model in place, how we are really trying to migrate to the digital transformation and adapt these kind of technologies? Over to you, Colonel PK.
Great. So the panel is where I work for an investment bank, and we are very heavily exposed to these kind of challenges, as you mentioned, not exactly physical security here, but there is a various perpetrators who would try to socially engineer our employees, communicate with them various technological means by hacking into our emails, by falsifying our counterparty domains and such activities.
and thereafter they try to social engineer the people in our organization who are dealing cash so that they probably impact transaction in their benefit, harming the organization's profit or loss. And the biggest challenge that I see is the inroads that these perpetrators get through the kind of technological networks, the social media, the communication network, and the only solution which I foresee is continuously being aware of these challenges, continuously making a team, our organization, our employees aware of the possibilities, such activities that happen. We in our organization are very deliberately working on case study basis, picking up similar cases happening anywhere, thereafter identifying what were the occurrences, what were the reason for such occurrences, and what can be done to avoid such occurrences. And what I would advise to the organizations to the inroads that the technological advances are giving to perpetrators into the organization. Thank you.
Thanks, Colonel PK. And just to highlight what the points he was saying was, every 11 seconds there is a ransomware attack now all across the world. And the situation is such that either you're going to be attacked or you're going to be attacked. You're already attacked or you're going to be attacked. That's the kind of situation. There's no escape. By 2030, we see that there's one of the studies, whether it's possible or not, every 3 seconds there is going to be a ransomware attack. And where Colonel PK is coming from is a BFSI industry where the vulnerabilities are really very large. They have malware attacks which are happening 24/7. Their data gets sold in the darknet, and they're always vulnerable. They have a data leak problem. They have threat intelligence problem. So a huge problem, right? So over to you, Dr. Lopa, on your views on the same. You're on mute, Dr. Lopa.
The biggest challenge currently is striking balance between the evolving customer need and the security, because customer need is continuously increasing and everybody is looking for something at the click. That is the biggest challenge today for the industry. Today, if you look at most of the attack or compromise, there is a human error from internal employees or the customer end, right? So that is where we can see that how social engineering is taking place. So that is really, really a weak area and very big challenge what business is facing today. Above that, lack of change culture. So change is a continuous thing, right? The only constant thing is change, but this pace of change is very fast today. And every change requires a cultural shift. Currently, another challenge organization or customer base of the organization is facing is change is a slow activity and it's a behavioral adoption. So now it's time to innovate how to boost that speed, how to align the speed of current digital transformation along with the cultural and behavioral change through which people need to be go through or what people need to adopt. Apart from that, strategy play a very, very important role. Any technology adoption or anything, anything is require a proper strategy and aligned roadmap to execute that strategy. Today, if we look at the digitization, right, due to the pandemic, it was during that phase, it was very important. Business should move on. So there is a major adoption of cloud. In the first year itself, evident more than 40%, acceleration of cloud adoption. So majority of the cases, is there a proper strategy? May not be present, but Still, the challenge is there today to fine-tune them. So, most importantly, strategy is another area, and having adequate skill people to handle this cyber-related area. It could be cyber risk management, it could be a developer needs to be trained, because everything is soft today. We are going more on a kind of, hardware based to a software based thing. And today when we are also looking at the attack surface or the attack environment, and earlier that is something, little bit challenging, but today it is very easy because cyber attack is actually made available as a service like any other services, right? So these are the area I think currently in industry need to look at and address those challenges. Above that, obviously, industry need to align with the regulatory requirement. That is very important. And cyber security specifically need to work very closely with business, legal and regulatory system, your communication system, as well as the executive management.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Skills and strategy, very important. And over to you, Jeffrey, for the same question.
I think there's I'll give two examples, very recent examples here in Australia. One was our second largest telecommunications company, and the other one was our largest private medical insurer. Both suffered cyber attacks in recent weeks. In both cases, the information that was stolen was that of the medical records of 480,000 of their clients in the insurance company and an unknown number of people in the telecommunications. And the discussion now is that as we want to have access here, those organisations require us to provide them with more of our own information. The medical records is slightly separate, but for us to have online access to many organisations, we're asked to provide information about parents or schools or what have you. So these businesses hold a lot of information that under normal circumstances 20 years ago would not have been the case. So it's another example of technology, or be beneficial, is also a risk unless it's managed properly. And these are two very respectable organisations. As you mentioned, Colonel, that information is now on the black web, being sold on the black web. So it's a major, major issue here in Australia at the moment with these two very well-known and two highly regarded organisations. So the publicity around these two events, I think, will be good. It's not good for the people, the staff, as well as the clients of these organisations who have their information has been stolen. But I think it's a huge wake-up call for the rest of the community. So it's large and small businesses that are susceptible to these attacks and that must have their defences in place based on intelligence and information, and certainly in being risk-based, as Dr. Loper suggests, and an outcome focused. How do we maintain our business whilst protecting this data that we're privileged to hold that belongs to our clients?
Yeah, very rightly brought it out. We have to really be aligned to what's happening and how the attacks are happening, what's the information loss which is there. So those are the kind of things which we have to really work it out. And just for information of all who are not in touch with the latest guidelines which have come up by the CERT India, and it's the same is the case in Australia also, that if you have a cyber attack on your organization, you need to inform CERT India within 6 hours of you coming to know about it. Okay? So this is very important. Otherwise, there's a huge penalty which comes up on that company. So how large or small the company or an organization is, they need to inform. And the other thing which they have to be very be aware of that in times to come, they have to have the security logs. That's all the IT logs of the organization, and they have to give it to the CERT. So you have to realign your security, and that's called a SOC, the Security Operations Center, and that's a software SEIM. So you can have the logs. This is a mandatory requirement. You cannot forego, and it is coming as a with a very strict guidelines. So we have to be aware of it. Till now, it's not been implemented in the kind of way they wanted it, but yes, it's there on the anvil now, and there's a paper on it. So one last question before we wind up the panel discussion, as to while we are trying to transform and we've seen that a transformation is happening. So I'd like to ask my panelists as to what are the transformation strategies which companies should adopt so that our security businesses which are there, they become as a new age business service providers rather than the old vanilla service providers. So those are the kind of things what they really need to look into. Just over to my panel one by one before we wind up.
I think quickly I'll just make 3 points on this. The biggest challenge that I see why as on today the security companies are not really adopting technology is because somewhere man is threatened by technology. It's a fact, and there's no point running away from it. We believe that if technology comes, people will get laid off. And which is a fact. People will get laid off. Why? Because we have got into this, think of mundane work. For example, if a warehouse is being guarded by 10 security personnel, you replace, 6 of them with around 10 cameras, and you have a couple of guys watching the gate and the control room, and that does your job. A couple of guys maybe even can respond to as a QRT, correct? So this notion that man is threatened somehow needs to go out. Now I'll kind of contradict myself here. When you talk about security architecture, there are 3 primary pillars to security architecture, which are tools, tactics, and personnel. While technology is a tool which you are using to create tactics, you cannot take out man from the equation. No matter how advanced a technology becomes, man will always remain the center of the driving force of this machine. And this is something that we need to understand, and this is something we need to explain and help our clients understand that, hey, while you might have to let go of some people here and there, but it is very important for you to train the others who are the quality guys to be able to adapt and use the technology that you are trying to bring in. Because this is the only way going forward. I mean, man tech. This is how the world is going to look. Unless, we have, the judgment day of Arnold Schwarzenegger come up, then again, man, the human element again was very important there, to gain victory over machines. But well, yeah, man tech is how it's going to be. Thank you.
Very interesting. And man, you cannot take it off. And even in hackers, just to tell you, there's a man who's behind that complete attack. And what they now do is there's no lone wolf attack. It's a well-planned profit and loss company like we have our companies. So only thing is, they do hacking. They have people who are server guys. They are people who are, sales people, marketing people, negotiators. They are programmers. They are cryptocurrency guys. They are people who handle darknet separately. So they run it like a normal business, right? And even in the case of Jamtara, if you look at it, they work like that only in India, very famous. So man, you cannot take him out, and any attack which happens, it's been monitored by the person. So there is a command and control center he opens up and he keeps on looking at it. So this is how it is going to be in the future also.
So just one point here, very interestingly, you just mentioned that they open a, SOC center, command center and all that. So basically the adversary is an adversary 24/7. But are we security professionals 24/7? That is a question that we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, thank you very much. Over to you, Colonel PK.
Yeah. Interesting here. We talk of technology and man behind technology. And major challenge that he is, while maybe plethora of technology that is be available for security and safety to maintain actions. Bulk of it is at a heavy price. And what the correct is that businesses are not very generous budget when it comes to implementing technology as well as hiring the men that have to use that, and that somehow somewhere compromises on the safety and security aspects of its organization. So my strategy suggestion would be to be comparative when it comes to seeing safety and security as the revenue consumer rather than a revenue generator, and however also the impact that the P&L of the firm would have if these are compromised. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Colonel Gore. Over to you, Dr. Lopa.
So when it's come to the security, this is one unique domain where man make the difference. You may have the best technology, best process, everything in place, but if you don't have a best brain behind the technology to, execute the technology, technology can't help you basically. So today, if we look at the way the shift is happening, the digital transformation going on, CISOs are playing a very critical role. So we need to look at, and as an industry, we need to understand that a different level of automation, different level of technology adoption may remove some of the role, but there are other work or other opportunities are coming up. So we need to move our manpower on that area and reskill them. Same way, technology is always not coding or administrating. There is two other factors which is a kind of weak link today: strategy and tactics. So some people may be very good in administration or very good in coding, but if you don't have a proper tactics and strategy in place, or strategist basically in place, that is a big challenge. So we need to look from that perspective, and we need to see that how this evolving role of CISO as a strategist, as a business enabler, as a as a tactical advisor, how they can value add to the system. That is the thing I think going to make a huge difference. And man is still going to be there because human brain actually creating the technology for the betterment of mankind, and we may move out from some of the job, but again, to maintain, for example, if robot is going to replace some work, or robotic process automation is going to replace that work, but still we need the manpower to maintain this robot or maintain those robotics automation.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lopa. And over to you, Jeffrey.
Thank you. I think in that transition strategy, one of it's about education. In the aviation industry, when X-ray of carry-on bags was brought in, it was regulated by the government. But for instance, pilots were saying, well, I don't need to go through a walkthrough because I could drive the plane into a mountain. So the industry failed there because we should have taken it, educated that pilot as to why it was important that that pilot set an example for the other staff and passengers and the like. And I think that's a really big issue. I think that when technology is introduced into a business, it's not only the board who make that decision, but we need to make sure that we, all the staff are aware of that transition. Why is it and what's it to do and what is the outcome of using that technology. Now, not everybody will like what they hear, but I think if you take the majority of staff these days are sensible enough to understand that this journey for technology is just beginning. We've got a long way to go, and we need to, and people will always be part of it, but we need to educate the workforce of the benefits of that technology, not only for the organisation, but for them as well. So I think education is a big one, and I think also the security industry, again, like health and engineering, it's probably time that we had a closer relationship with academia on these fronts, and where we can work closely with the universities, not only in the development of technology, but the implementation and the psychological impact that introducing those technologies may have.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and very valid point. Technology, adoption, adaptation, academia inclusion, engineering inclusion, training ourselves is the key. And most of the panelists who already brought it out, the man is the key in this particular technology transformation. And while we talk about the AI, and there's a very big question always which we get at, are we going to lose jobs? My answer is no. I'm optimistic. Realign yourself, reskill yourself, because the kids who are getting, out of the colleges, or the security personnel who are there present day, reskill them with a new technology. They're the biggest assets. And that's how we have to go. We can't shun these people who have been there for ages with us. Only thing is, reskilling is the key, and that is what even we talk about the digital transformation, and Prime Minister's motto also, we talk of the digital transformation, the digital India, or digital people. That is the key to the future. And the digital transformation will really change the industry, what we're looking in for. While we talk of cyber cops, which is a very common terminology, these are cyber police stations which are there, very common terminology. Future, what we have is something called meta cops, which is going to be there. There are going to be meta laws which are going to come up. We are in a testing time of technology. We are seeing all the technology happening in front of us. I think we are the most lucky guys when the complete digital transformation, Industrial 4.0, Industry 5.0, that's all happening. So thank you very much, my all panelists who brought in such a valid point on the digital transformation in the security industry, challenges, strategies, and issues pertaining to it, and what's the way forward. Right? Thank you, each one of you, Chakradhari, Dr. PK, Dr. Dopa, Jeffrey, everyone, and the August gathering. So before we wind up, any questions, if you have, we'd love to answer. Anyone, any question?
I'll have just one question. We have seen in the recent days the total crash of the crypto exchange. Am I audible now? Am I audible? Yeah, so we have seen in the last few days, a lot of articles coming in the media regarding the crash of the, crypto exchange, CFX. Even today, some articles were there. So with the sort of discussions we had over the last 2 hours, what could have been done in retrospective to have prevented it completely, or if not prevented, at least to mitigate it? That is one question. Second thing, what is the level of preparedness that we in India have compared to other countries, including Australia? We have Joffrey over here. How do you, rank the preparedness of India's law enforcement agencies to handle the challenges that we have been discussing for the last
Okay. First question I'll answer. Second question I'll ask my panelists to answer. Why this? Firstly, all of you should be aware that the crypto exchanges, and most of you would have done an investment. People you would have been doing yourself, some through a third party, guys who have advised you. Just to give you a holistic view of what the crypto in India is and why we are against it or not against it, and just some bit of history, and then the FTX I will tell you. Before 2018, crypto was totally a ban. The RBI had written a letter that crypto is banned, anybody having 10 crores, we'll put him in a jail, everything, right? So it was a big no-no. Anybody talking of crypto also, why are you talking of crypto? So that was the case. Now come to 2020. Supreme Court gave a, overturned that order of RBI that you don't have any rights to say crypto ban. They overturned that ruling of it. And 2020, when it happened in the month of April, and that's the time when we had the COVID, okay? And most of the people jumped to crypto, and most of us would have bought crypto, traded, earned money. That's what happened. Now, 1 year, and because of that, there were almost 15 million people in India. We have jumped to all the crypto exchanges. There, we had a mushrooming of almost 30 exchanges which came up in India. Now, all these exchanges were unregulated. When I say unregulated, they were like a startup. I would put some money, some investor, I start an exchange and start trading. They're unregulated. What happened was they started flouting rules of KYC. Even like if I want to open up an account on a very popular exchange called WazirX or a coin DCX, it will just take me 5 minutes to open an account. You go and open an account in a bank, you see how much time does it take. You have to just give your Aadhaar card, PAN card, whether you are the person or not, they accepted it. Because of that unregulated thing, the problem started. And that's where we saw a lot of noise of the cryptocurrency ban coming up. Then there was a cryptocurrency regulation which came up, which was supposed to come up 2019. It didn't see the light of the day. And now come to 2021, last year, in the month of July, maybe June or something. Last year, June. So RBI again pulled up the plug. They said any bank having a connect with, crypto, we'll ban you. We'll fortify your license. And all slowly, ICICI, Axis Bank, HDFC, they started putting up their plugs. Then all these crypto exchanges were taking the transactions to UPI, which was not in the very glaring eyes of the government. In month of April this year, 2nd, 3rd April, it came to the notice that they are using UPI for the transaction. MobiQuick, that's a platform, Paytm, all those guys were using that platform for the transactions. And thereafter, the UPI also has been pulled, putting the crypto to a crypto winter, which is called, right now. And the situation is such that we are in a position that where we say whether to go for crypto, not go for crypto, because there's lots of investment which has happened from the startups, and India being startup promoting country, we are still to come up with an actual decision. What went wrong in this was, one, we were unregulated. All these exchanges, 30 exchanges, there are a bunch of guys who started, they didn't do KYC. The other problem which came was they were not doing the KYT. KYT means know your transaction. Once I make a transaction, whether I'm sending it to the terror funding or whether I'm sending it to China, couldn't be identified, right? And this is the most concerning from the law enforcement agencies. And unfortunately, the exchanges, which were supposed to keep the track of KYT, know your transactions, they faltered because they didn't have the software to know that. That is why last year you would have seen there was a case of 2,750 crores being sent to China by lending apps and terror financing. And crypto is more predominantly being used for terror financing in India, whether it's J&K or Khalistan or other places. And you'll be surprised it doesn't happen one wallet to another. It's a trail of wallets, and to track them, you will say 50 wallets in between, and then it is going to the actual person in that. And there are different kind of crypto. Most common is a Bitcoin, but the criminals use a crypto called Monero. And then they use a terminology called mixing. So they obfuscate the complete, address of a crypto. You can't even find it out. We were not prepared for, as a country, we were not prepared for these kind of things. Law enforcement are now really working on these kind of cases where the cryptocurrency, terror financing, which is there. The FTX crime, the thing which has happened, is a similar case of unregulated. guy, you wanted the money because $550 million in my account. Just imagine. They wanted to siphon off. That is how, since it was not regulated, like we have all the banks regulated, you have exchanges regulated, your SEBI is driving all the financial system. They wanted, in India also wants as part of regulator. That's why they are not against banning it. They're thinking of creating a regulator maybe who can regulate the complete crypto exchanges. So we are still to see how they are working it out. But the indicators which are being given by the finance minister, I can't really comment because earlier discussions we were very clear, but then now lots of things have changed over a period of time. But crypto is here to stay. Technology is here to stay. Since it's being handled by individuals, they tarnish the complete technology. Blockchain is here to stay, and like we spoke of all the transformations in due course of time, blockchain, everywhere you will find blockchain with AI coming up. So that is a technology which is always going to stay. So it's a very interesting thing which is there. I hope I answered your question, sir. Anything you want me to tell, I'll love to tell that as well.
The last budget, actually, the profits made through the exchange of cryptocurrency was made taxable also.
Yes. So what happened was,
the government of India accepted that it is a legal thing.
So it is not accepted as a legal thing, sir. What it was, there are three kind of monitoring which we can do in a crypto. One, we can monitor the exchange itself, find out what are the KYC, who are the people who have gone into the exchange, opened up account, and who are the people doing the transaction. Second is the bank, right? I have a bank account. I link up a bank account with a crypto exchange and find out that transaction, like we do the money laundering. So same thing could have been done. Again, we didn't have that. Third is the taxman. Taxman was supposed to have this kind of a software where they were supposed to know where is crypto being used, who are the people having the wallets, and what are the to be taxed as a TDS or capital tax. Now, when this particular budget came in, because we were still in a doldrum whether to legalize crypto or whether to illegalize crypto or ban crypto, we said, and there are 15 million people right now. They're on the exchanges and they are transacting. Though the transaction volume have gone down drastically, but they are there. That is why they told that, okay, let's have a tax. At least they should pay the tax in case they are transacting. So it should not be like a free run kind of thing for everyone coming and going off. And if you look at the track when COVID happened 2020 April till 2021, lots of people, good for them, they survived on crypto because they traded on crypto and their houses were running on crypto. They were out of the job because lots of people lost their job. Most of them migrated to crypto to survive. So that is how they are. But the challenge was the game players, the exchanges, the guys who were there. They were unregulated. The people who siphoned off money, they were, did money laundering. They didn't ensure all those kind of things which were there. That's where the problem actually has come up. I hope so. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad that I sat through this very useful discussion, and it strengthened my belief that security is almost like a science. It's based on principles which must be adhered to. Now, what is security? Security, two parts. You have information about risk and you decide how to act on that. So information and action form the total story of security. Now, 2 points need to be made here. One, that the first principle of security is that you act on reliable information. So when we are going online, and it was mentioned about voice simulation and everything, I think there is no reason why a person receiving a strange kind of instruction does not have time to go back and check with the origin of that. I think because he's not making sure that he's acting on reliable information. In fact, in the classical intelligence working of old times, if there was an information, the rule was that it must be confirmed by two independent sources. So that was, of course, theoretical. So in my time, I said, make it one. Then I further said that if you are convinced that it is reliable, convey it, but add the rider that is still to be confirmed. So, that is one point. The second is about this technology and man. My view is that technology takes care of flagging the risks and dangers, but the response should never be without human discretion for two reasons. One, the response may spread across various wings of the organization, right? And then response may have to be calibrated. So this function machine will not be able to perform. And that accounts for why maybe I think there will always be a requirement of manpower at the leadership level. A little, at the mass level, maybe there's some reduction, but the importance of manpower doesn't go away. The point that was made.
Thank you, sir. And sir, point about the policing. The cyber police are geared up for lots of crime investigations which are there. I've seen them, they're getting equipped for darknet, they're trying to get equipped for cryptocurrency, they're trying to equip for social media attacks, OSINT, open source, and they are trying to work it on next level, that's a behavior analysis. That's again, they are working it out, and more importantly, they are working on the sentiment analysis, like the case of CA, when people are really, tweeting something, they're sending messages. So you really come to know about the sentiment of the places and take corrective action, or what kind of policing model which you need to apply there. So these social media, while they are for interacting from the law enforcement agencies, they are a plethora of information which is there, but it can only be made as actionable information with using the tool. Like I told you, sentiment analysis, behavior analysis, you can actually find it out, lots of information about them. So the thing which I was talking about, the predictive policing, that's the future. So I think we are all getting geared up for that. Sir. Any other question, please?
Hi, sir. Good evening. Sir, during the session, first of all, it was a wonderful session. I would like to thank you and all the panelists. My question is that, like, during the conversation, you were apprising us on the cyber attack, like there has been a legislation now. So if in case any organization encounters basically a cyber attack, they have to inform within 6 hours. To which body, sir? Can I have the name, please, once again?
So that is CERT-IN, that is CERT-IN.
Great. And my second question is that, what if in case of any individual is encountering the same?
So for that purpose, there is a site by I4C. Right?
I4C.
And that number is now very simple, 1930. So in case you have a cyber crime, so you have to understand, everything doesn't come under cyber crime or attack. Crime on an individual is a cyber crime. Crime on an organization is a cyber attack. Crime on a critical infrastructure or important places are the cyber terrorism part of it. And attack on the country is a cyber warfare. So you have to actually, they have a very blurry line, but then this is how, if it is a cyber attack, you have to put it. Or cyber crime is there, I4C, it's a pan-India, 1930 is the number. You can dial that, and there is a site of I4C, .gov.in, I think that's the extension. You can go there, fill in the form, and tell about the cybercrime.
Great. Thank you, sir.